in the couple days since I finished sanding the Cape Dory 31 Danusia here. I've finished up most of the prep work required before I can apply primer, which is going to happen tomorrow. I hand sanded the stem to remove some paint that I couldn't get inside the bobstay. None of the tools would reach in there, and I'd already taped that up, and I didn't want to take the bobstay off. So I just finished it up by hand. I'll be able to spray in there, no problem. I went around and patched up any tape that I might have damaged with the sander, especially around some of the hardware on the stern, which I'll show you. And what we're looking at now is the hull is in its final state of readiness. It's been solvent washed. It's nice and clean. Shop's as clean as it needs to be for high build, which is pretty clean, but not top coat clean. I marked and taped the water line and added some paper so I don't get overspray all over the bottom. Retaped all of this hardware on the transom because that got a little beat up during sanding. Taped those through holes in the counter. And this is ready to go. Just been working on the final prep. It takes quite a bit of time to do the water line and the various cleanup and remasking and getting all my spray equipment ready. So it's a full day. I didn't quite have a full day yesterday. It was more than I could finish in one day, so I finished up this morning. And this will be ready. I'll turn the heat up so that it warms up in here overnight. When I spray this paint, I like it to be at least in the mid to upper 60s in the shop. I usually keep it much colder than that, like 50. So this is ready to go. Shop is clean, staging set up. Got my spray hose and air supply hose for my mask all set to go here. I taped them together for this job. So that's ready to go and flaked out. These hoses are a real pain in the neck when I'm spraying, but it's a necessary evil. Anyway, that's the boat. Next time you see this, it's going to be covered in high build primer. I use an Alex Seal product. All the paint on this boat will be Alex Seal. It's not an endorsement, it's just what I use. So we'll see you then. This is the morning after applying high build to the hull. 3 coats of Alex Seal high build I applied yesterday morning. And this is what it looks like the next morning. My next task is to sand this and do any minor filling and repairs if that's necessary. And then we'll move on with finish primer. I like to use the high build because it gives, better than almost anything, it gives an indication of where there's extra work to be done on the hull. I find it very valuable for that because it always highlights little things that you never noticed before. And so I count on that, especially if there's been repair work done. I find that you have to highlight the pinholes and little mistakes in the fairing. This boat I didn't do any work to, so there's not going to be a lot of that, but even so, there's likely to be spots where it just doesn't look right, and it takes this layer of paint to really see that. You can't see it on the sanded hull. I mean, you can to a point, but not the top coat is completely unforgiving, so you need to find stuff now at this stage. I don't know if you can see right in that upper spot of light. There's a little scratch, and that kind of looks like I hit it myself on the way out with the gun, but maybe that'll sand out. And some of this existing repair work, I can see there's a few spots that I may need to put a little skim of filler on. I know it's not going to show up on camera, but the point is I can see it already through this primer. And it may sand out flat, and I hope so. But if not, then this is the opportunity to fix it. And that's why I like this stuff. It's not required for the paint system, but I find that it's very valuable. It's worth the extra time, especially most of the boats I work on where I've already done a lot of hull work and fairing, and it's almost required in that case. This boat was in good shape. I probably didn't need it, but it's still the right thing to do for this and make sure that it's just right before I do primer, finish primer. Because there's no repairing the finish primer. Once you get that on, you need that to be consistent before you do the top coat. So anyway, here's high build primer. Always makes a nice transformation in the boat. And next I'll sand this smooth. And that's what you're going to see next. It's later in the day and I've sanded this hull with 220 grit on a 4-inch palm sander. Sand all the primer that way. Then I cleaned up the boat with a vacuum and solvent wash. And then finally, I've gone around with some 2-part fine filler that I like. It's Alex Seal fine filler. And filled in a few little spots. I mean, it looks like a lot, but it's really not. This is a skim coat. Just filling in some little sanding marks, some little pinholes here and there, that kind of thing. If I hadn't done any of this, would it have mattered? Probably not, for the most part. But it'll make the paint job a lot better. And these are things that really only showed up once I did this high build. So that's why I like it. There were quite a few sanding marks basically along the length of the tow rail there where I used a detail sander. Kind of gouged up the boat a little bit. So that's why there's so much filler up along that rub rail edge. When I say gouged, I mean scratched. Don't want to make it sound worse than it is. But it's the kind of thing that could show up through the top coat, so I filled it. Same around some of these through hulls and stuff where I used that sander. And there's not much on the starboard side. On the port side, as we move forward, you'll see I scraped some of the fill over a bunch of those scratch marks that were there, that were mostly hidden by the primer. But it just seemed like they would take just a tiny skim of this fairing compound, so I went ahead and did it. You know, if you can physically see it filling like that one there, then it's something that might show up through the white paint later. So this will cure for the weekend. And I'll come back and I'll sand it again with 220, and that'll be the final prep before finish primer. So one more day of prep, sanding, cleaning, and we'll be ready to go with finish primer. You can see all these spots. That's all those scrape marks that were filled. You can go back a couple days and see what it looked like. Again, did this stuff have to be filled? Probably not. And some of these places I kind of look at it and see a shadow, so I'd try out some filler, and some of these places it didn't really even leave any behind other than the, just the sort of telltale of where the blade went. So this is not a lot of fairing compound. It's very, very thin. But this is why I do the high build. It just gives me the opportunity to find these spots, give them a little bit of a touch-up that hopefully will help make the finished paint job just a little bit better. So next step from here is going to be more sanding once this cures. And then it'll be ready for finished primer.